Hello and welcome to episode 12 of OPERAVISION's Next Generation series. I'm Nina Brazier, a stage director based in Frankfurt, and over this series we've been diving into 4 European young artist programmes: the Rossini Opera Festival in Pesaro, Opera Frankfurt, Opera for Peace in Paris, and Palau de les Arts in Valencia, exploring how the opera world is developing and nurturing the next generation of talent. Today we're back with the Rossini Opera Festival's Accademia Rossiniana Alberto Zedda, with 3 singers who've just spent their first week in Pesaro. In this episode we'll be finding out how one mezzo-soprano likes to compare herself with other singers as a tool for self-improvement, a young tenor's tips for avoiding giving a generic performance, and how one young baritone finds a way to make a role truly his own. I caught up with our young singers online from the buzzing offices of the Rossini Opera Festival in Pesaro. You'll pick up on some of the background atmosphere, but the content is worth it. We have mezzo-soprano Saray Pinar from Turkey, Andres Cascante, a baritone from Costa Rica, and Xavier Pinar, a tenor from Chile. As always, let's hear some opening words from our young artists.
For lack of a better word, have a bit of fun. Do a cadenza you like to sing and a cadenza that you're looking forward to sing, or an ornament that you like to sing and you look forward to that moment, and not something just like, oh no, it's coming.
The Rossini is so playful, also the character is so colorful, and also the music also including that character. You have to teach your voice also, vocal cords also. How could you manage and how could you give that colors in your character? That's why you have to be like an acrobat.
There's a certain avoidance that we need to be aware of not doing what the cliché movements, the generic movements always. There's a humanity in it, right? These are supposed to be real characters. These are supposed to be compelling stories that the audience feel that human connection.
Let's get deeper into what Rossini as a composer demands of the young singers.
My name is Xavier Prado. I am a tenor. I am originally from Chile, from Rancagua, the end of the earth. I live in Los Angeles in the United States right now. As a tenor, and a tenor of my caliber, I sing a variety of repertoire. I sing bel canto in general, which is not bel canto. You can't just clump Rossini into the rest of bel canto. Rossini is almost a fach of its own. So before coming to Pesaro, I was singing this year Romeo and Juliet. I was singing Rigoletto. I was singing The Love for Three Oranges. I was singing some modern operas, and all of this is more lyric repertoire, and so it requires a certain different approach. And then all of a sudden I have to change gears for Rossini, where I need to be agile. I need to go to the high note really fast, really quickly. I have to be ready to give dynamics where maybe you don't naturally expect them anywhere. I mean, it requires a true virtuosity. It demands excellency in every measure. There's no just, even though it sounds like sometimes you're just cruising, right? It sounds like sometimes just so sublime and easy. The way to get there, psychologically at least, is extremely difficult. It's sort of like if it was a difficult music that at the same time is meant to feel like we're battling, but it isn't. It is difficult, but it's meant to come across as the easiest thing in the world. Even if you're suffering, and even though there may be an intention of sadness in certain places, it never is supposed to feel like it's difficult. It's supposed to feel like it's just coming straight out from the heart to the audience. Like it's not passing through vocal cords. It's not passing through anything. And the way it gets there is through a bazillion high notes and a bazillion fast moving passages.
Just a few of the challenges of singing Rossini. I was curious to hear about their early audition experiences. Let's start with Turkish mezzo-soprano Saray Pinar.
First, I applied with the video, and then they invited me to audition. It was, I think it was in April, and I did live audition with 2 aria. They chose just one to listen because it was so crowded, a lot of people. I'm sure everybody is so good. Actually, I sang well, and then Palacio, I chose my aria. Then Palacio invited us.
You mentioned the audition there, that it was so crowded. I'm wondering how that sense of competition makes you feel when you have to step out in front of the panel. You know how many other people are there because you've seen them crowding around. How do you deal with that sense of competition?
It's making me so happy to hear the same generation from the other countries. There's also an incredible chance. He is giving, the Master Palacio giving us a chance to make audition, and thanks to that we can listen to others also. And generally singers doesn't like to compare, but I like to compare then because I want to be honest to myself. To listen to others, I am thinking about myself. What is my positive side? What is my negative side? What can I improve myself? Auditions and competitions are helping for it a lot for me. Of course, everybody has a special way, has their special way, but also we have to inspire to each other. That's why I like to compare myself with others.
You know, there's always a temptation to invite that self-doubt and to compare yourself with other people, but each person brings something unique. And at this point in our career, we have developed a technique. I mean, we're here for a reason. And there's a lot of it that is out of our hands. So when I go to any audition, not just for the Accademia, but if I do any audition, I try to remind myself that my job is not to get in. My job is to communicate. My job is to make art. My job is to sing. My job is to create this world of beauty, tell a story, and do it the way I feel it, the way I have prepared it. And that may line up with a convention. It may not. But after that, it's out of my hands. And hopefully it is genuine enough and honest enough that it'll convey a message of, okay, well, this singer is worth investing time on. This singer has something to bring to the table that is unique, that doesn't just check all the boxes, but that it's human. That gives me not just a simple self-confidence, but a realistic perspective on what the situation really is.
My name is Andrés Mauricio Benavides Cascante. I know it's a little bit long, but as a singer, I use Andrés Cascante. I am a baritone and I come from Costa Rica, but I lived for about 10 years in the States and I'm currently living in Paris.
And I know you've been just a week at the Accademia. How would you describe your experience so far?
In my experience doing several young artist programs, this is the only one that focuses solely on a single composer. And the type of teaching and learning is so specific and so catered to this style of music, which is very invaluable for us that want to sing more of this repertoire. Me as a baritone, of course, Figaro, right? So having that knowledge, having that way of interpreting and like making it very stylistically accurate is, to me, invaluable. I've done several programs, but it has never been like this, just focusing one composer. And of course, having the expertise and the expert ear of Maestro Palacio for both technique and style is a very rare opportunity, and being able to work so extensively with him, because of course, in other instances, you get a 1 hour coaching with a person, with a specialist, you get to run the things a couple of times, but here we are with him all day, and we're with him listening to other coachings all day. And I think it's an opportunity to learn from my own repertoire, but also learning from seeing others like at different levels work on this repertoire, learn things, learn the style, learn when it's appropriate to add a variation, when it's not. It's a craft on its own, I will say. And it's just a very amazing opportunity to just be here, and at times being able to sing and being corrected, but at times being a little fly in the wall, just learning from others' experiences and others' ways of interacting with the repertoire and with the style. And it's a very, very unique opportunity. I'm very happy to be here.
You mentioned there the specifics of technique and of the style of Rossini. What are the things that you're beginning to take away from working with Maestro Palacio and the other incredible professionals you have there?
One of the things that I found the most interesting, it's like, even in Berenreiter scores for Mozart, for example, they oftentimes recommend the appoggiatura coming from the upper neighbor into the in the recitativos. And of course, this applies to Rossini as well, that you actually have several possibilities, and it's depending of the situation, depending of the musical taste, that you can do an appoggiatura coming from the upper neighbor, or you can do an appoggiatura coming from the lower neighbor of the note. And it's all like, it's a tool, an expressive tool that you can use to make your recitativo sound more natural, put that emphasis, and that appoggiatura was supposed to be an emphasis, right? And that grew into those big accents that we hear in Verismo, right? And it's very interesting to connect the dots, how that emphasis in the text that comes from the appoggiatura grew into an expressive tool later in Verismo is not only helping me to understand how to sing Rossini, but also how to sing later things, right? Which I think it's important to know the journey of the music and the journey of the style and those sort of things that I think makes me a much more informed composer. And that is things that oftentimes Accademia don't teach you, right? Like, it's usually, okay, we're going to do always upper neighbor, right? But you realize that you actually have the artistic liberty to choose.
By neighbour, Andres means the note above or below the one that's written, and appoggiatura is when a musician almost slides from a shorter note above or below the note to the note that they then land on.
Also, the use of like a glissando if the recitativo calls for like a longer appoggiatura, you can use the glissando from one note to the other. Depending, of course, this is all in context, depending of what you're saying, and also depending of the taste of the director, of course. But you can come to the table already with a much more informed way of doing things. I think this is incredible to really know that I have that liberty, and me as an artist, I can choose how I'm doing this recit, how I'm doing these appoggiaturas. Is not only what maybe it's written on top in the Berenreiter scores, just like upper neighbor, upper neighbor, upper neighbor, but no, not necessarily. So I found that very interesting, because now I go back and see all my recitativos, and I say like, oh, well, that could be a lower neighbor. Why not, you know? Also, of course, that the second time that you present a musical idea, you're able to change that, and you have that liberty that within style to add your own flavor, one could say. It just gives me this like artistic freedom and expression to just find my own and work in them with Maestro Palacio and find something that is like unique to me and unique to the way my voice works and unique to the way I want to do a role. I think that was something also very interesting that I found, that it's not always adding more coloratura, adding more movement, adding more notes. Sometimes it's taking away, sometimes simplifying to make it mine.
You've also got masterclasses coming up, I think, over the next couple of days with Juan Diego Flores, with Rosetta Cucchi. How do you prepare for moments like that where we perhaps at the same time want to prove ourselves in front of people with this incredible high status in the industry?
I think a masterclass is an interesting setting because you basically present yourself and you're worked with in front of other people. So it's very exposed position. And luckily, I mean, the panelists that they're bringing are amazing, not only pedagogically, but also in the stage. So that's a great thing. That makes me feel very, very assured that I will learn a lot. I think just me personally, I moved to the States without speaking any English. And I feel masterclass is kind of that. You have to be vulnerable and just open to learn and just open to get other people's perspectives, other people's ways, and just present what you can, the way you can, and just do your very best, bring something you feel comfortable enough so you can easily change the input that they give you, that you don't just maybe start learning it and then you will have a hard time changing things, adding things. The more secure I feel, it's the better. And I feel the more secure you also can work on a higher level. Me personally, I always try to have fun. Every time I sing, I always try to have fun. I come from Costa Rica, which is a country where opera is not part of like our tradition. And pursuing a career in opera is not something I could do in my country. So I try to have fun, and I try to always be thankful for every time I get to be on stage. Doesn't matter if it's a masterclass, a concert, or an opera. I always try to have fun, and I always try to be open to people that want to help me in my journey.
Don profondo, metà gli incomparabili, camera rimpagabili, fidi tenebrosa, sublime antichità, in aurea carta pecora dell'Accademia in titoli, onde son membro nobile di prima qualità, il trattato inedito sull'infallibil metodo di saper ben distinguere a prima vista ognor, l'antico dal moderno, di fuori dell'interno, né maschi né effetti né ogni altro oggetto ancor. Lo spagnolo! L'ambiente genealogiche dei diavoli bisavoli, con gli antiche storiche di quel che ognuno fu, di planiste e croci, i nostri coglioni d'ordine, grossi come noci, si spera del Perù.
You mentioned just earlier on, close to the beginning, that you've learned a lot from watching other people explore the work. Could you tell me about one or two of the sort of useful things you might have picked up from your colleagues over this last week?
I learned from the cadenzas. I usually, in Accademia, sometimes you kind of come up with your cadenza and then that's it. But just having the guidance of how to really make that cadenza, or what is stylistic, what is in taste. Here, I think, I don't remember in my student years to hear like anybody try to teach me a taste in a Rossini cadenza, for example. And I think it's one of those things that you need to absorb by listening and by listen to Maestro Palacio work on people and say, oh, this is right, this is wrong, this is wrong. That taste, I think, is something you absorb. I learned that cadenzas are more appropriate when they are just a single vowel and different pitches rather than syllabic. For example, we studied the cadenza from Il Trovatore, Il Balen del suo sorriso, the very often cadenza that a lot of people do. I'm not very familiar with the aria. I'm going to maybe butcher the words, but it goes like syllabically spero dal sole d'un suo sguardo. And I learned that syllabic kind of construction is maybe not so appropriate, and it's better when you have only one vowel that kind of goes into different pitches and undulates back and forth rather than a bunch of little syllables. And I went back to my arias and I was just like, oh no, I did that for my Come Pari de Vezzoso, now I need to change it. So I think in the past when I presented things that are like to a new audience or judges or a new panel, I felt a bit insecure about the style, and I think now I feel so much more secure that this is the way, and I have the ear, I have the taste and I can do it, right? And that insecurity was not because I didn't know or because it wasn't not in my ear, but was because I think I wasn't given the artistic permission.
Our young artists have been in a masterclass with the director, pianist and artistic director of Wexford Festival, Rosetta Cucchi, who was our guest expert back in episode 3. What have they been exploring with her? Here's Chilean tenor Xavier Prado.
One thing that she mentioned specifically when she was working with me was the avoidance of being generic, because sometimes you've done a role a number of times. Like take one piece that because we didn't only work on Rossini, we worked on other repertoire as well. We did this little bit from La Bohème, the duet of Marcello and Rodolfo in the 4th act. And as I was singing it, of course, I've sung that before. And so as I go into almost autopilot, I know where I'm supposed to stand. I know where I'm supposed to look. I know where I'm supposed to do that. And then it stops being human. It stops being natural. And it stops being honest. And so the biggest takeaway for me was, okay, remember why you're saying each thing. Remember that in the theater, sometimes we think that we need to make these big movements, but it's not always true. Sometimes subtle little things do come across when they're intentional, when they make sense, when they are from the heart.
The way she's teaching, she's inspired Stanislavski, which I love also. It's so useful for stage and the beginner and also the beginners. And it was something so helpful. We spoke about our lines in the stage, and she gave some examples for us of which steps we should follow on the stage. The first step, you have to know yourself. The second one, what's going on around you. Then the step third is about the whole world. I am also using my experience. For example, these stories, every time the human is every time the human and the same. Unfortunately, we are not an animal which is every time improving. I don't believe it. Mm-hmm. We have every time same story. Just I am trying to catch in that century. For example, if Rosina live with that century, how she will behave, or what will be Rosina's the favorite foods, what will be Rosina's the favorite color.
Maybe we've been in that situation, or maybe we haven't, but we can have empathy for that person. But we can't have that empathy for just doing the same thing every time just because that's the convention or that's how it's done. The first thing that you do is to read up on the story and to find a way to understand the character, to understand the situation that they're in. And so absolutely, the conversation begins there. The conversation begins on who that character is. The conversation begins on what has happened before. Not what will happen now in the scene, is what has happened before. Because the character doesn't know what will happen now. The character is about to just start talking to themselves. And there should be no other option for the character but to do what they end up doing.
What advice did our young singers receive or wish they had received from earlier teachers that would stand them in good stead now?
Just trust yourself, because no one doesn't help you. What you are doing is only your own work. Because right now productions are so big and the theaters are giving too much money and they don't want to spend and they don't want to waste their time with someone not ready or not enough?
Maybe I would say that my ideas are valid when I come up with something, when I come to an ornament, when I have an artistic idea to add to the aria or something, that my ideas as a student, as an artist, are valid, because ideas need to develop, right? Like you need to generate that taste. And if very early on someone tells you, no, you know opera, you have listened to opera, you know the style, you can come up with good things, right? And you can perfect those ideas and those cadenzas and those variations. You have good ideas. You have that agency. I think that agency is very important.
I wish they had told me or had prepared me in a way to have a mentality of flexibility about what I think I know. Because in the last 10 years, last 12 years that I've been singing, there's sometimes in myself, there was a bit of a need of defending what I thought I knew about technique, about voice. But you know, you come here to Pesaro and you have all these lectures with really great artists, with doctors, with therapists. You have the opportunity to really take in so much information, and sometimes opinions that might even be on the surface contradictory to each other. But this is a good thing. This is a very good thing, because it forces you to say, okay, well, I'm going to take this information and then I ultimately need to make my own decisions about it as well. If I could, I would say, yeah, just have a little bit more flexibility and not be so fixated on proving myself right all the time, or saying like, oh, this is the way it is and this is the way it is, because tomorrow I'm going to discover yet another thing and it becomes even richer and richer and richer.
Thank you so much to Andres Cascante, Sarai Pinar and Xavier Prado for joining me today on OperaVision, and thanks to you for listening. There's plenty more online at operavision.eu, where you can see Il Viaggio a Reims live on the 18th of August and online later, featuring this year's participants of the Accademia Rossiniana. August's entire OperaVision programme is dedicated to productions of Rossini from different European festivals. You can also catch the final of BBC Cardiff Singer of the World, the Opera Studio Soirée with young artists from Opera Frankfurt, Opera for Peace masterclasses with Eileen Perez and Brian Jade in Paris, and Cendrillon by Viaggio in the performance from the Palau de les Arts. I'll link to those in the show notes and give details on all the other music extracts you heard in this episode. We'll be back with the Palau de les Arts Centre de Perfectionnement on Friday the 1st of September. This series is edited and produced by Karen Piri and curated and hosted by me, Nina Brazier. OperaVision is co-funded by the European Commission.